I
Sure.
can
You hear me?
I can hear all of you.
Wow, my sound and my camera are working. They didn't work the last meeting.
Oh, all right. You mentioned that before. And
Yeah.
did you restart your computer since then?
Oh, of course. Um, and I knew Zoom was working because I got the little check mark
Yeah.
saying please update automatically. So it had been working. There was something else going on because somebody else told me that they had trouble getting in with no sound. Was that you?
Uh, I couldn't get the video to work properly. I had to readjust in order to do it. But oh well.
Oh well. So am I the only one here?
Yeah. Well, you're 6 minutes early, so people tend to get here about 5 minutes, between 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after. So
Oh, wow. I thought there'd be a line forming round the block.
yeah. Typically we have about 7 to 10, somewhere in there.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I don't know what happened to my newbie that I brought to the last meeting. She didn't participate in the competition at the first of the month, and I haven't heard from her since.
She did
So
join.
she travels. She's a big wheel. She's busy. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with her.
She did join the club. I saw
Yeah,
that.
she did. She sent in her money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
These working people, I tell you.
Yeah, gee, you almost have to be retired to have any fun.
That's right. Just you and your teddy bear, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, there you go. That's Judy's teddy bear
Okay.
on Judy's little girl rocking chair.
From
She Yeah, she has her own office, but she kind of moved a bunch of her stuff into mine because she thought it was junking up her office. So
and she knew she couldn't junk up your office.
no, 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 no. Yeah.
There's already so much junk.
Oh my God. I have too much stuff.
Was that Judy's rocking chair as a child?
That's the one.
Wow. I have one from my sister who got it from her husband's parents. So I guess her husband rocked in that chair when he was little. And then her kids rocked in it when they were little. And now she gave it to me, and my granddaughter rocks in it. So
Wow. You got a rocking out family.
we're all rocking.
Do you know anybody in LA that lost their home?
No, I don't. I do know quite a few people down in the area, but everybody's done okay. One
Wow.
guy, one guy in Pasadena is in the evacuation zone, but he he says he's not leaving. So I don't know.
Yeah. So one of my cousins, they own a condo there.
Yeah,
And the first word out of his mouth was, wow, this might be a good time to rent that condo out, thinking that he was going to score.
yeah,
And I right away I said, please do not do that. If you're going to rent it, please give someone a deal
yeah.
because you don't want to do that. You don't want to take advantage of a really bad situation. So,
Right. Hi,
uh,
Chris. Hi, David.
Hi, everyone.
hello, hello. Can't hear you, Chris.
I think I heard him.
Testing.
Yeah,
Hear me?
There he is.
there you
There
are.
he
Okay.
is. Okay. You just need a louder testing.
Well, I'm on a new computer and still getting stuff set up. Not
Oh,
used to having a camera that is separate from a laptop,
yeah.
for
Quit,
example.
quit moving your camera around. I'm getting motion sickness.
This will be the first session of 2025. Did not have a December one since I was otherwise engaged for a lengthy period of time in December, but anyway, we're starting back up here in January and hopefully we'll continue for the rest of the year.
Nice.
Do you know the judges for the end of year?
What about them?
Do you know who they are?
Oh, yeah. I picked them.
You picked them. Oh, well, who are they?
That was Doug, what's his last name? Douglas Stinson and Melanie Lewart.
Oh, okay. So they're familiar with our club.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
judged it before.
Yeah. So Doug hadn't, well, Doug has judged our end of year competition for, probably a couple years ago, but not so much the month to month, because he's made a requirement that he requires image preview.
Oh,
But since we've changed that, I'm inviting him to judge for us during the year.
so image preview is how many hours or days before?
Oh, well, we have set things up so that entries are cut off at the end of midnight Saturday, Sunday, and then the judge has a better part of 2 days before the Monday night competition to view them, but
Okay.
not judge them there, but just
All right. Usually 2 days. All right.
yeah, better part of 2 days. And though I haven't announced it yet, Melanie Lewart will be our judge for February.
Okay. I was going to be contacting you about that, Chris, or the
Okay.
magazine.
Well, it's the 15th. Yeah, it's getting on, but I got a bazillion things to do, including with all the events of the coming weekend ahead of the inauguration. I'm covering a couple of, what they're calling People's March, rather than Women's March now.
Yeah. We'll give them one more minute and then we'll start.
And thanks, Jim, for the heads up on the change in Adobe pricing. I changed my account last night
Yeah,
to yearly.
and I did as well.
Yeah. I hadn't heard about it otherwise.
It's been sitting out there, but when you get notified 3 weeks ahead of time, a lot of times you don't pay any attention. So,
Well, I tend to read those things, but I don't remember getting such a notice, but I guess it came out.
A lot of those companies spam you so many times that they slip one of those through like that where they're changing the billing, you might not notice.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible.
I mean, I finally bought my subscription to Photoshop, and now I mean it's like almost every day I get an email from them as a quote unquote new user. Hey, you
Uh-huh.
could do this.
yeah.
You would lose any official message like that. It would get lost in the pile that they send you on such a regular basis.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't get any messages from Photoshop, but I've been a user for
You read 100 years or so?
Yeah, 23 years or something.
Yeah, you're in the old timer list.
Yeah, don't bother them.
Yeah.
They bite. Okay, let's start. And I'm going to start off by taking two images that were in competition, and we're going to take the judges' comments and then make some adjustments. And feel free to chime in at any time. And the first one that we'll look at actually belongs to Rick Varley, who's joined us. So Rick, you can see your image there.
That's it.
There it is. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Or not. Maybe it doesn't allow you to do that command oh, there it goes. In Zoom. So just a quick note. So it jumps between 100% and then I go Control plus to make it bigger, but I want to still see the whole image. So down here in the lower left-hand corner, a quick trick is you can make that size anything you want. So I'm going to say 160% and then enter. It's a little bit smaller, so 150%. And enter. All right, that's close enough to what I want to see. Maybe not. Okay, so I can see the image. I'm going to show you something that we'll talk about in the AI section, but up here, this is the new remove tool, which people absolutely love. And if you're not familiar with it, make yourself familiar with it, because I'm going to show you something right now just to make it easier to deal with. I'm going to take out Rick's name, and it processes. It'll take a second or two to process it, and it's gone. So don't worry about copyright images anymore. Anyway, the point being is that that tool is freaking amazing. Now, what they've done recently, they keep upgrading it, by the way. So if you don't have automatic updates on, you should, if nothing else, just for this tool, because it gets better and better. In the initial stages, when they first had it out, I'm going to zoom in here so we can look at it a little more closely. It was only low resolution. So you could see the difference between the images, but now they've upgraded it so it's got nice, relatively high resolution. So I'm sure it's not perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect on a 6,000 pixel image, but it's doing really well. Okay, so the things that the judge talked about is he didn't like this roadway, and he really didn't like this sign at all. So back to our remove tool, and we can get rid of this sign, and we'll see, there it's gone. And you'd never know it was there, and who cares, right? So
I think I see a little haloing effect around where you had the select area.
I don't think so. So let's go back to it.
Oh, maybe not.
See, there is some water or something that's already.
Yeah, that was fooling me.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to, you just redo up here, edit and redo to get back where you were. Or you could use the history tool, which I use a lot of.
Yeah.
But just to let you know, I left the speed limit sign in because of the title, Rush Hour.
Yeah. I thought it was on purpose.
Yeah, it
And
was.
it was.
Yeah, in fact, I highlighted it because you couldn't read it before I highlighted it.
Oh, okay. Well, doesn't mean the judge is correct.
No, it doesn't.
No.
So the other thing that the judge said which is going to be difficult, but we'll see what happens. We'll do a couple of different versions of this, is that he said he wanted to crop that road out. Well, this road comes way over to here, down here at the bottom, if you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do what he said, and I am going to, oops. Why isn't that, that should just delete. Wow. Instead of deleting, it's putting the speed limit sign back in. I don't understand.
You
Perhaps
used
the
the remove tool on the background copy and it remained on the background.
So I have the original, and then I have a copy on which I'm making everything.
Yeah.
And
So when you delete part of that, you reveal the background, which still has the
oh, I'm sorry.
speed
Yes.
sign.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Let's see if I turn off the background, if that still happens. All right, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of those rocks too, because it would interfere. So let's delete that. And now the image, it's in the lighthouse is sort of in a block of 1/3, not quite, but close. This bird is getting flying off to the edge. All these birds are actually flying off and coming too close to that edge, so I'm not crazy about that.
It doesn't seem to have the same impact right away to me.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, you've lost a lot of the birds.
Yes, you lost a lot of the birds too. So let's explore a couple other versions. So I'll go Control Z and go backwards, or Command Z if you're on a Mac. And so here's a couple other things we could do. And one of those is our handy dandy remove tool. We'll go back to that for a second. And I'm just going to remove, I'm going to see what it does if I do it carefully. Now keep in mind, you should use this remove tool for lots of things you don't think are possible, and it is. Kelly Zhang, who does a lot of nature. Okay. It put more
That looks
rocks.
better already.
Yeah, put more rocks in there. So that's pretty amazing. And puts more birds in there too, by the way. Which I
Can
would,
you zoom in on those rocks you added just to see what the detail looks like?
yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, it looks okay.
It's not too bad.
No,
Not exactly the same, but it's really close.
really close. And this is a low res image. This is the same size as competition,
Mm-hmm.
1920 by 1200. So it's not a high res. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
it has a much better image.
If you work on it in a higher resolution, it'll look better
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
all of this will, but for speed and for convenience. So I just clicked on the remove tool and it took out bird. Now, if you look closely, let me look at this remove tool settings. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a slight uh, round shape there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You guys can see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we see it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I don't think there's a way around that.
I usually when I run across that, I just redo it.
Try it again.
Yeah. I,
You don't have more than one choice, like in in Lightroom, they give you three choices when you're using the cloning tool.
No, well, cloning, yes, I could do lots of different things if I was cloning, but the remove tool, it's a fixed mode. Yeah.
You get whatever it gives you.
Okay. Well, you guys get the idea,
Hmm.
and it does a great job of getting rid of that. And so I'll show you. That's the before, and that's the after.
Hmm.
And still got plenty of birds. I don't mind the birds getting close to the edge when they're small like that. I think the judge would have been okay with that. Uh, so there's also a new feature, if you haven't used it before, under Find Distractions. And it's got wires and cables, so you can take wires out of your pictures
Oh,
automatically, but also people. Now you can see we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people, very small people. So I haven't tried this. So I don't know if it'll do it, but then I'm going to click people and it's going to find people theoretically.
ah,
Found some birds.
yeah.
And the bird too.
Yeah.
So
So,
what happens if you zoom in on the people
and
so
just,
they're larger,
yeah, I mean,
but do you still suffer from lack of pixels, I wonder?
well, I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to make a selection
Yeah.
And do it.
and
And I presume that find distraction option is available only when you have the remove tool selected. You don't see that generally with other tools, I presume.
right. So let's see though. I'm going to make a selection. Then I'm going to go back to, yeah, see, so my selection's there, find distractions, and see if it only finds them in the selected area. No,
No?
no,
Didn't like it.
not happy.
Uh,
Okay, they're just too tiny, but I've seen it and I've used it before actually with a beach that had like 7 or 8 people, one of which was just behind the other person. It was like right here. And it found them, took them out perfectly. So pretty amazing. So I'm going to show you something that also amazed me. I'm going to try to do it with these birds. So you can see that there's 2 birds overlapping here in the center. I'll make it
Ah.
even bigger.
Yeah, right there.
So what I'm going to try to do before it pixelates on me, I'm going to try and use that remove tool and make it a lot smaller. Okay. There's a little bit here. So I'm going to intentionally go on top of the wing of the other bird. Left some artifacts, but I guess you can clean them up and not too bad.
No, you're pretty close.
Yeah.
By
So
the time you back out, you're not going to see it.
no, not in a million years.
Yeah.
So I had an interesting case come up. Kelly Zhang's one of my students. I teach Photoshop to her, but we had an interesting thing happen where she had 2 zebras that were fighting each other, and they had their mouths open, they were snarling, they were standing up on their hind legs and trying to attack each other. And there was a narrow space between them, just very narrow in the image. And behind these 2 zebras was a 3rd zebra that was just walking by, but it was very distracting. We took that remove tool and ran it in that narrow area, weren't very careful, just went zoom, just drug it across there and got part of the lips of the zebras and part of the body of the zebra, but we wanted to get rid of the zebra behind there. It matched it perfectly and did not hurt the two zebras that were fighting each other. And it's a pretty impressive shot now. Okay. Rick, that was yours. And once again, that's the before and that's the after.
You know what I'm going to do? This is interesting. I'm going to try and see if I can do the exact same thing in Lightroom, and then I'll send you the result.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. The other image I wanted to look at was this one from Sherry Gravette.
Mm-hmm. This is the
And
blue problem, as I recall.
Yeah.
Too blue.
yeah, yeah. Now, what happened here, and I'm going to use the remove tool to see what it does with her name. That might be a little tougher because there's a fence behind there, and so we'll see what it does. It may not help us with this particular image.
The color's not great, is it?
Yeah, not great. And you know what I would have done? The judge didn't mention this, but it was bugging me, was this extra color down here was very distracting in that image. So I would have done that to it.
Can you zoom in on those handrails a little bit?
Yeah, I think they're a little blurry, it looks like to me, but
That's what I'm kind of curious to see.
this one,
That came out better than I thought.
yeah, not too bad. A little
No,
bit,
that's not too bad.
The middle section is a little blurry.
yeah, this little section here is not perfect, but you could always clone. I'll go to my clone tool. And I'll pick this area. And I'll just replicate that over there. And I could spend a lot of time messing with that, but that's
Yeah.
not the point of this this particular thing. So what she's done here is it's oversaturated. And where that is clearly shown is in the windows, in the glass. You see how this blue has pixelated here, actually. And so you've got these dark and light areas, and that's because there's too much saturation in the blues. So if you don't know about this tool, this next tool I'm going to show you, it's called go to Image Adjustments, and you go to Replace Color. If you haven't used this, it will become one of your friendly tools that you would want to use. And it gives you an eyedropper instead of a cursor. So you can pick an area. So I'm going to pick this big giant area of blue because it was too much blue. And look at this, it gives you a chance to change the hue, the saturation, and the lightness of that blue color. Now, one thing I'm leaving out here is, you see up here, the fuzziness. If you go all the way to the right, it takes care of every bit of blue in that image. And so let's try this. I think it's going to be too much, but let's just reduce the saturation. It's turning purple, and it's actually getting a little pixelated too, which you don't want. Yeah, not liking that. So you bring it down, I'm going to bring it down to about 100, the fuzziness. And all that fuzziness is saying is that I'm going to choose part of the blue in the image, not every scrap of blue that comes close to this blue. And now I'll change the saturation. And that works a little better. Although it's still changing.
Kind of dark.
I'm sorry, what?
It's kind of dark. Can you lighten it? Is that
Yes,
what?
you can. So I can lighten it. But look at it's changing to a purple color, which I hadn't counted on, by the way. And I'm kind of wondering if there are some clouds in that sky, since it's giving me these
Ah.
shapes. I'll bet there was some clouds in that sky, and
Okay.
that's what's reflecting on these panels. So let's make it blue enough. Now I'm going to darken it a little bit. So that's a little more realistic blue. You can see what it's done to these panels are all reflecting what was here. The other thing the judge mentioned is that you could select this blue area and then do a sky replacement, I think is what he was getting at, to put something a little more interesting in there. I like this image though. I like the reflection of the clouds in this part, and it just needed, this just looked like a big blue zone over there for some reason that wasn't making sense, and then it was oversaturated and causing these problems with the panels over there.
I'm guessing that the fuzziness slider is kind of a tolerance, like you sample a point, and if you have very little fuzziness, then it's going to apply this adjustment to just pretty much that one color.
Exactly.
I'm not,
Yeah, it's gonna,
whereas if you open it up all the way to 200, then it samples a much wider range around your sample point.
exactly. Anything that's bluish versus
Yeah.
100 is going to give you something that's fairly close to the color you started with, and 0 is going to give you only the color you started with.
Yeah.
What do the localized color clusters do?
They,
That switch or setting at the top under just under the
yeah, you can choose to increase. So see this plus and minus stuff,
hmm
eyedropper. You
I
can
see.
choose more blues than just that one.
Ah, yeah.
That's all it's doing.
hmm
Um, but the fuzziness slider works plenty well enough. You don't have to do that. You could do that if you had like some really severe color matching that you had to do. If this was for an ad, we used to do really tight color matching on things. We might use it at that point, but the fuzziness is fine for most photographs. The last thing I'm going to do is we'll take a look at, I'm going to say, okay, and I'm going to look at these panels. So there's a couple of ways to approach these panels. And one of which is I'm going to take this polygon lasso tool. I'm going to put a feather of just one, which is not very much. And feather, all a feather is doing, it's just softening the edge very slightly. When it's a feather of one, it's barely softening it at all. And if I wanted to take the time, I could take this panel and say, okay, I want to fill that panel with that solid color so it's no longer blotchy. So I can come up here to my color picker down here. I've got my color picker and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and I'm going to pick this color up here, which doesn't have any reflection of the clouds, which actually kind of looks pixelated and or dirty, or it doesn't look good to me. And then I'll say, okay. And then I'll do edit and fill. And I'm going to use the foreground color. And now I've just filled it with that panel. So now that panel is a solid color. And I could tediously go in and do all of those panels, which I'm not going to do.
You could do that with the right hand big triangle, couldn't you? On the right?
In here,
Yeah.
yeah, if you wanted to match it exactly. these windows are actually a little darker than the triangle, I believe.
Well, you could also pick something lighter from one of the other somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. You could pick
I
it.
just I find those clouds in that assuming that's what those are, I find those distracting. I think it would look better with just a solid color.
Or a replace or do a sky
Well,
replacement.
sky
Okay,
replacement would
yeah,
work better.
you mentioned sky replacement, but unless it's your own sky from another image, I think you get into you know uh, violating our club rules on
Yes.
everything should be your own work or based on your work. That's the only saving grace for some of this AI.
And
What you were showing in the last image, because the rocks that it put in were at least loosely based on the rocks that were there.
yeah, actually they are the rocks that are there. They just created a block of them in that previous one. So you're right about sky replacement. We'll talk about that in the next segment, but just for fun, let's do it. And
Okay.
I've loaded in edit and do sky replacement. I've loaded uh, a dozen or so of my own cloud shots in there.
Uh-huh.
So I have no problem using my own cloud shots in there as long as we're in color pictorial
Right,
or creative.
right.
And I'm gonna mess with it a little bit. Huh.
So you can direct the sky replacement tool to particular images of sky that you want to use.
Yeah, so I'll show you. These are
Huh,
so these are all my images down here.
right.
Some of these, there's a one or two of them are old ones that are in there that I couldn't get rid of for some reason that were default. Like this is a default down here. The rest of them are my images that I shot at one time or another. So let's just use this one just for the heck of it. And I'll say okay, and I can adjust it if I want to. I'll do image adjust, hue and saturation. If we wanted to give it a little more saturation. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to, it's created, when you do a sky replacement, it creates all these additional layers.
Huh.
And so I'm going to flatten those additional layers and put them in with this one. And now I can do image adjustments, hue and saturation, and I can increase the saturation a little bit. That's too much, but somewhere in there might work. And I could adjust the brightness and contrast. Could make it like it's getting towards evening or, change the time of day. That's a little too dramatic, but somewhere in there is okay. And so let's look at here's our before
Huh.
and our after.
Yeah.
So
A lot prettier.
yeah, it's like I said, the intention is really to show that what the judge was going after, and not that he's always correct, because Rick's speed limit sign definitely went with his title. So the judge didn't need to say that, but it was distracting to him. And we all are very subjective in our comments. Okay, so I've already demonstrated some AI features, and one of them that I wanted to spend that time on was the remove tool. So I've demonstrated that a few different ways. So let's try it. We'll just keep this image for now. Let's try a, a different AI tool. And I'm going to come over here to, have to remember where I put the tool because I rarely use it. Okay, in the crop tool now, you can expand your canvas. So let's say I wanted more sky over here and more of that building even. We'll see what it does. So you expand it where you want it expanded, and then you hit generative expand. And then over here you hit generate. You can also give it word instructions like add birds to the sky or something like that. But I'm just going to hit generate and see what it wants to do. And it's going to give you three choices. It doesn't give you just one. It gives you three different possibilities. So look at that. It expanded the fence line.
Ooh.
It expanded the sky nicely. And these are things you could do with a clone tool. I would take,
Why don't you try clicking on the other two?
okay,
I want to see what it does to the fence.
Fence,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Gave a little more ocean, but now it's off kilter,
All right.
or the horizon's no longer level. That
Okay.
one blended it off. So it looks like that was the best one. Now,
Yep.
if you don't like any of these, you hit
Mhm.
generate again. And we'll just do this one more time. But it made a perfect copy of the top of the building, if you noticed.
Yeah.
Actually, the one it just did now looks a little better of a copy. The other one was slightly off for some reason, at least to my eye.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
That's a different copy of that same building. The fence is messed up down there.
Mhm.
Whoa, that one's pretty good.
Yeah,
That
Oh,
one
that's a good one.
works.
yeah.
So
So,
Eric, this is
yeah.
Charlie. If you go up to the right corner when on one of your panels,
Yeah,
one of the three panels there,
these.
yeah, you see the three dots?
Yeah, yeah,
You click on that, and right at the very top it says generate similar.
right.
So if you have an image or something that you like, it's close, and you want to see some more options specific to that adjustment, you can click that and it'll give you more options.
Right. And so I just clicked it. Let's just see if it gives us what it thinks similar is.
Mhm.
Well, the horizon's straighter at least.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. This color coming through the fence is a
Weird.
little weird. Yeah. But
As if the rest of the photo wasn't a little weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It gives you the other two options there too, as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't work because now the water is following the fence line.
Not too bad.
That one looks pretty good.
That one's more reasonable, yeah. So all in all, it pulls together these things. Now it's very interesting that I could have accomplished all of these things with a clone tool. I could have accomplished all of these things with the fence and with the building and that sort of thing. I probably would have spent a good half hour, 45 minutes, and I've been doing it a long time. And so that tells you that AI is taking it a step further because it's doing it for you and much, much faster. And we'll talk about this one again in a minute when we leave this portion.
Question, when to get the generative expand, you get that when you select the clone tool,
Crop tool.
crop tool, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, up here, the
Okay, it
crop
comes
tool.
up then.
And then once again, don't forget that you have to actually merge this section because it creates a separate layer for it. So I'm going to go over here and merge these two layers together. And now we'll be able to see this is that's before, and it just shows the portion that where the crop tool was, but that's what her original image looked like. And that's the after. Okay. So a couple of things. The generative expand, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to talk about it briefly, just as never mind. It's not going to do what I'm thinking it's going to do. I'm going to backtrack on that. But what you could do is just crop it back to its original. And then what I was thinking is that if we had in the past, if you had like a cloud here or something that you didn't want, or you wanted to a building there or something, and you wanted to do um, a selection. So let me find this. I've hidden my selection tools. So in the past, I'm just going to uh, sorry. I'm going to fill this with a background color, which is white. And then in the past, what we did if we had something like that, we would go to edit and we do content aware fill. And you could choose an area that you wanted it to work from. And then say okay or apply. And it applied it. And then you say okay, and it goes back. So it filled that in for you. But if you look at what content aware fill does, see how there's an edge on there? And that always was a problem for me when I used it. But if I go back a few steps and I use the remove tool, it should theoretically do it perfectly. So what I'm getting at here is that instead of using content aware fill, use the remove tool. It fills it. it's not removing it, it's filling. And so that's just a new new twist on this tool instead of using content aware fill. I think content aware fill is going to go away. There's not a whole lot of use for it. The same thing for spot healing. If you've used the spot healing brush before, and I'll show you how to use that real quickly. Where is it? Oh, it's under here. the spot healing brush. And I need to make a smaller brush. And by the way, I always keep that hardness on very soft so that it'll blend with the area. But let's say I wanted to remove some of these spots from this panel. All I need to do is click on it, and I can start removing some of those spots from the panel. And it picks up an area nearby, so that one's no good. But that's how it used to be done. Now you could just take the remove tool or fill in the whole panel at one time. So let's use the remove tool. And I'm going to do this big section of the remove tool. And you may worry that it's going to take the lines out around the window panels, but I'll bet it doesn't. I'll bet it says, oh, that's a window panel. It needs to be there. Look at that. It's not perfect, but it saved a lot of time by doing it that way. So instead of using the spot removal tool or selecting it and filling in the panel with a color, there's another way to do it. And okay, I showed the generate versus content aware fill. So now what I want to spend time talking about is AI. And I've been doing this in a couple of different sessions. If you've been in one of my sessions before in the last couple of months, we've been talking about AI. And the reason being is that at some point I'm going to put together a detailed article on pros and cons about AI. If they stop changing the flipping program, I can get caught up. But anyway, the concept being that it's doing a lot to change how we're approaching our images. And in categories such as nature and journalism and yeah, in those three categories, we're not going to, AI is going to be completely out for now. And I say for now for a reason. There was an image, and I'm trying to get a hold of it. And Jim Lamb, you might remember this because I think you were in the session. There was a session that Debbie Sy put on, and it was there was an egret that was displayed, and the egret had a reed that was going right across the front of its body. And that reed was in the way. And theoretically, even though it's nature, if you use that remove tool, you could take that reed out and it would completely replicate anything behind it from the bird. So now the question becomes, is that still nature? Or did AI do too much? And that's just a question. That's not something we need to answer, but that's going to be an interesting question in the near future.
Well, according from the N4C discussions we've had for nature, that's not allowed. You can lighten and darken things.
I understand.
You can't remove them.
Yeah, like I said, so that's something that in the future that may change depending on how we approach things.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of what you said, Jim, is that we have been using, if you're using Photoshop or Lightroom, which probably every one of us here are, you've been using AI for years.
Mm-hmm.
Lighten and darken, you're using AI. You're not doing it. AI is doing that. It's looking at the scene and darkening it. If you make a selection, it's darkening just that selection, et cetera, et cetera. Technically, all of that's AI. And so those rules, I'm not saying we should. I'm not trying to make a case for that. I'm just trying to say that in the future, those things may change.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have no doubt that whole thing is going to be an open discussion for at the very least 2 years.
probably, yeah. And it's funny because some of it comes down to being wanting to be purists. I know Rick is definitely a purist in his photography. He has a point and shoot camera for God's sakes, and he gets what he sees. And he's learning Lightroom and a little bit of Photoshop in order to make some enhancements. But his photographs are pretty much purist photographs. And I think even in the categories we consider to be more purist, that may have some changes in the future. So,
Hmm. Yep.
uh, what do we think about using cloning? If you're cloning something, let's say I wanted to clone a little piece of fence down here. And let's say this was in uh, travel, for example. Uh, and I had to clone a little piece of fence down here. I'm going to guess that all of us are going to say, nope, can't do that.
You mean
That-
clone it out?
Or to clone it in. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
yeah, either way, I'm going to just do some cloning to that fence. And it's not affecting the image as a travel image. It's still the, Tech Museum in Venice, Italy, or so. I don't know what this image is, but whatever it uh, is that going to change how we view it? This is just a question I'm posing to everyone.
So one of the issues is, are you cloning it with pixels that are in your image, or are you cloning it with pixels that are from another image?
Well, that's a good point, but almost always when you're cloning, almost always, you're cloning from your own image, right? So I would just be taking a piece of fence and cloning it, right? Let's say, let me just do it just for, whoops, wrong tool. Clone tool. Just for fun, I'll do it. So I'll just take this and see how it was like buckled there. I didn't like that. Maybe
Hmm.
I could, oops, I was on the wrong layer. So I fixed that, but does that negate it from being in a story category, which you can't use clone tools?
Well, it would be in Chris would have to answer this because I'm not sure, but if this was a travel picture, Chris, how much cloning or how much changes to a travel picture can you make?
Well, I would think little or none.
Hey, I don't think you're allowed. You can
That's what I
still,
was thinking because it's the
Yeah.
ones you can't do much cloning, I think, are travel, um,
Nature and
na-
journalism.
nature and journalism. You pretty much can't do
yeah,
anything other than lightening or darkening.
And
Uh,
I'm not even sure about that if you're doing it selectively in areas of the picture.
yeah, I think the rules even don't let you darken the corners in nature.
Yeah, vignetting, though.
No
Right.
Yeah,
You
that,
can't
vignetting.
do vignetting, but you can lighten or darken a bright spot or a dark spot or,
right.
like a white image with no detail in it, you can darken it a little bit on a bird or something like that. But that's kind of the limit on those categories. But if it's in creative or color,
yeah, that's
and
fine.
it appears black
And
and white is pretty open as well.
Sure. As long
So,
as you're
but
using your own pixels, whether they're from that image or another one.
Yeah.
And in Photoshop, you can do that, right? I could use pixels from a different layer. I put a different image on a different layer and then
Hmm.
clone those pixels onto another one. Add birds or, whatever. And that's okay as long as your own image, right?
Yep.
if you don't mind my asking a quick question,
Yeah,
so in the more restricted categories like nature,
yeah,
what about if you have dust spots from your sensor that are causing a little darkening in the sky? Is that considered
Yep.
okay, or is
Yep.
that?
You can remove those.
Yeah. And that is indicated in the rules under types, image types, when you're looking at competition. So you can look at image types and it covers that saying, yeah, dust spots are okay.
Okay.
And a few,
Because in a sense, there's, I understand a philosophical difference there, but there's no real difference technically.
yeah, yeah,
Well, there's a dust spot, and then there's things called like a beer can next to your bird.
Yeah,
You can take the dust spot out, but you can't take the beer can out.
Right.
because that's the reality that you were capturing with the camera, and you don't want to, you know, put your photographer's interpretation on that.
yet,
Fine and creative and pictorial, but
yet the judge would count you down because there is a beer can in there.
Yeah.
So,
Move on to the next image. That's just not when you'd submit. That's all.
Maybe the bird likes beer.
Well,
Yeah.
and the bird in the
we
beer
can
can could go in
speculate.
journalism.
Maybe the bird does like beer.
Yeah.
so these are all questions that we're going to be wrestling with over the next couple of years. And these are not questions that I would have brought up a year ago because the new introduction of the latest tools makes it so easy to remove people and do, those kinds of things that it makes it so easy and it's so tempting that it also made me start thinking, well, hell, I've been using AI for 20 years. I've been using AI in Photoshop, right? I've been brushing things, I've been doing. So there's not a whole lot of difference there. Was Ansel Adams using AI when he darkened his image? If you look at moonrise over where
Hernandez.
in New Mexico,
Yeah,
Yep.
Hernandez, New Mexico.
Hernandez, there you go. I'm going to put this when I do this long article I'm working on. I've got the original photograph of that, the negative and the photograph. And if you look at that, it's a washed out, ugly,
Yeah.
useless
Flat.
photograph. And it's become one of the most iconic photographs in the world because he used AI, Ansel intelligence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ansel Intelligent. That's a good one.
Well, it's thing is it's an artistic interpretation of the scene
Right,
that he saw, right? So
right.
his mission and purpose was to develop images that would sell as
Yeah,
prints.
yeah. And he
Right?
did it all in the dark room, just like we're doing it all on the computer now.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Manual manipulation, or in many cases, chemical,
yeah,
because he also manipulated his images by how fast he processed them and so
yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
And which chemical?
Developing the negative, doing a stop over or a stop under,
Yeah.
based on, to expand or contract according to the zone system.
Right.
The
Yeah.
original AI.
So
But
Ansel
if you
Intelligence.
look at that, the big difference between what he was doing is like typically the zone system has 5 zones. And when we're working with digital
Originally,
images,
but
we have as
Ansel's,
many as 14 zones.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like just so incredibly different.
Charlie, you were going to say something?
yeah,
know.
yeah. So I follow Russell Preston Brown at Adobe. I don't know if you know who he is.
I do. Yeah.
I think he's employee number 38 at the company. He's been there like forever. But recent discussions he's had with some European photographers, they are one of his interests is AI, using AI, but using your own bank of photographs
Mhm.
to draw from.
Yep.
So then the AI would be centered on all of the work that you have done, not external.
Right.
And I'm wondering what the group's view or thought of that is, as far as it applies to what we're talking about here. And I can understand the issues here.
Well,
Well,
again, that's fine in pictorial and creative or monochrome, but not okay in nature, journalism, or travel.
And to take it a step further, Adobe is already doing this. If you played around with Firefly, do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, yeah, I use it all the time.
Well, Firefly now allows you to add your images as the reference images that it's going to use. And so you put up an image of a couple at the beach and you want the sun setting, but the sun wasn't setting. So you take another one of your images and put it in as a reference image. It uses that. So it's doing it for you. So is that,
But it's truly not the end. It's a image representing your idea of the image.
but
But I think what Russell's talking about is actually using specifically your own photographs.
no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Firefly now has a section down at the bottom that says add reference images,
right.
your own. So things that I snapped. So you load those in there and it only uses those.
But is it only using those for the reference? Because if
Yeah,
I understand the way Firefly works, it's generative. So it's going to generate something. It's not just, you know, blending your photo in somehow.
Yeah, you have to turn off the generative going out into Adobe's millions of stock images and pulling images from there. So it doesn't do it that way. It's doing it from your images. Now, maybe it's only in my Firefly because I have the beta test stuff. So maybe I have to check and see if it's in the other AI, but I know that you can use your own reference images. I don't
yeah.
know if you can toggle it to say only use those.
I'll have to look at that.
There's a whole nother piece to this. I was in PPA for several years, and um, we're the artsy craftsy guys putting photos in contests. But for guys that are shooting team photos of soccer players,
Yeah,
and they have, 20 teams and they got 12 players on each team, um, they actually count minutes as to how long they spend on images because they're going to do 800, 1,000 images in a day, and they're going to make these badges and stuff. And these AI tools save them a hell of a lot of time.
yep,
And there's no rules about you can't clean up people's complexion and all that sort of stuff. And same thing with people taking portraits or things commercially and at
yeah,
work.
yeah,
And this saves them a huge amount of time. And
yep,
I think that's more where Adobe is pushing the AI stuff, but it overflows into what we're doing as well. So we get all tied up on what we can and can't do in these contests. But for commercial guys who are trying to make a living, it's all about time.
yep,
So these tools are saving them a hell of a lot of time.
yep,
Well, it's aside from our artistic, club competitions, I think it's also an issue for photojournalists, professional photojournalists, what they can and
Yeah.
can't do. I
Yeah,
think there was
But
a famous,
AP, when AP has, I think there's 7 categories, and if you send in an image to AP, you have to mark it as a 0, which means no changes, or a 5, 6, or 7 means you've applied AI to it. So you
you,
have to send the level of changes you've made, whether it's removing dust
yeah.
particles or removing parts of the image. So they require information on their images. They have a scale all set up for doing that. And so they're one of the biggest collectors of photojournalism pictures.
yeah,
Adobe does have it's called Adobe Initiative, and they do put a file stamp in your image if you manipulate it with generative
Yeah.
effects.
But
So
who's
it's there.
who's looking?
Well, this is it. It's if it becomes down to a dispute about journalistic imagery, something like that, it can be documented that the image was manipulated. It was
So
let's not call manipulated. Let's say a generative effect was used to create that image.
Yeah, but once again, who's looking? We're all on our system, right?
Google
Yeah.
doesn't Google fact check that? Oh, they're not doing that anymore.
Oh,
Facebook, no, they're not doing
I
that
came
either.
across, I was involved in a legal issue on a trust, and somebody was involved in making up a fake trust, and they had an image of it. And what I learned from the lawyers, it's $5,000 to have the the image examined, and they can tell whether or not it's been put together or if it was actually a true picture. So it's 5K if you have an image and you want to make sure that it hasn't been manipulated. And so when that came up, all of a sudden the guy kind of backed off because he knew he had created it using parts of documents and stuff.
Yeah.
But Rick brings up a good point about, which I was going to bring up, about the honor system. The tools, the AI tools have gotten so good that we're dependent more than ever on the
Yeah.
personal honor system to, not cheat,
Well,
to
there's
cheat or not
the
cheat. If
Sony
you choose to
contest.
cheat, you can get away with it.
Yeah, there's the Sony contest 2 years ago for $1 million. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that
Yeah.
guy cheated.
The guy that won
Yeah,
said, "Well, that's interesting." He says, "Because this is an AI image." And he only entered it. He just wanted to see how far he could go with the AI image.
right.
So he didn't take the money, but in fact, he won a big contest that Sony ran worldwide
Yep.
with his image.
Yeah, that was in the magazine about a year and a half ago, I think, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I did an article on it. I'm going to share something with you guys. If whoever wants to leave, by the way, the session's over, you can feel free to bail. But I'm going to share my screen again here because I'm testing out that theory of what you were just talking about. Here we go. Can you see
Yep.
these are properties, and Adobe has said several times that if you use their generative stuff, that they're going to put a watermark or they're going to put some sort of way to tell. But to my knowledge, I don't know how to find that. So if you look under the properties, which should have all the information, it doesn't show anything, even under the advanced, doesn't show me anything.
Yeah.
I didn't click on effective access, whatever that is. Yeah.
You did click on security, right?
Yeah.
I did. And
Yeah.
I clicked on the previous ones too. So let's close this one. Details, doesn't say anywhere there that it was done. And I thought first place I looked actually was previous versions but it says there's no previous versions.
Is this the image that was manipulated and you saved it?
Yes.
This is a saved image.
This is that image that we manipulated of Sherry's. We put the sky in and did all of that.
Yeah, and you saved that image.
Yeah,
This is what we're looking at, right?
right. Yeah. Sorry.
Let me. I tell you what. I'll ask someone that might know the answer to this. I can't do it right now, but
Okay.
I'll see if I can find out. But I can assure you that that is a fact that they do mark these images. You may not be able to see that, but it's something that is real, and they are doing it.
What I'd be real interested in is to knowing what's included um, as a manipulator to an AI image, because just like we were talking about, AI images have been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
But is removing a dust particle considered an AI
Yeah,
operation or?
that's a good question, and
Yeah.
I really don't have that answer.
But if you're going to go ask somebody that kind of knows
The
that story in there, I'd be interested in knowing
the
where the cutoff
parameters, right? Yeah,
was
the
or what's
parameters of it.
included.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
Charlie, I'll send you that image right now.
okay, I'll see what I can find out, and then I'll get back to you guys, let you know. But I may not get anything, but I'll give it a shot.
Okay, yeah.
All I can say is no.
Well, it's but again, it's something that Adobe and several other companies are doing as an initiative.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is something that they felt was very important when they were developing their AI, as having a system intact where they could go back and at least say, hey, this is not the image that came out of the camera. This image came out of the camera, but the software has been used to adjust it in some manner or another. So I think that's probably the extent of what the answer is. Not that they necessarily change the value of the image there. They put people in there that shouldn't be, or took people out, something like that. I don't know if they would have that extent in there. But I think they're just saying, hey, this is not a default image. This is something that's been worked on. So that's probably more for journalists than in news than anything else, I would say.
Just out of curiosity, anybody in our club been accused of this in our competitions?
you mean of actually using AI when we weren't supposed to, you mean?
Yes.
There have been some images that I've been asked to look at that did do some of that in categories where you're not allowed to. I'll just put it that way. I don't need to say who it was, but there have been a couple images that have come across. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a few that I thought, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Bernie has been checking to look for those things.
Mhm.
But it'd be interesting if you could look at properties at the metadata for the image that we just looked at, and it showed that, then that would be, clear. It'd be clear evidence that something's wrong.
Yeah.
Or it'd be nice if there was something that indicated on the photo that everyone would know as soon as they saw the photo. Oh, okay, you've made it. You've gone from a photographer to an artist.
Yeah.
The funny part really is, it's like you use two of their generative expand tool.
Yeah.
Okay, and you hear oftentimes you'll hear the judge comment about the image is cropped too close to the edge or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and to me, like if you use that in a legitimate manner to enhance the image, so it's fundamentally it's not in error like that. I don't know what the big deal is about that. I just maybe it's just me, but I know that if you respect like the nature category, the journalism category, that sort of thing, and do not manipulate it other than what you can and cannot do as far as lightning or something like that, then I don't know. Maybe we can do that already. I don't
Well,
know.
you can in color and creative. Just black and white too.
So you could do that in color and creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that truly what the club's interpretation is?
Well, I can tell you that a bunch of those static art pictures that some of the guys in the club are really good at, those are composites of a whole bunch of photos.
But
They're not people taking a desk and putting the items on the desk.
No, I know, I understand that, but is that AI though?
He's saying generative AI to expand a background. Let's just say you need an extra inch on the right hand side. Is that against the law?
I don't think so for those categories.
I think we've been taking the interpretation that that expansion is based on pixels already in your image.
Yes, as long as the pixels, I think where it's going to the line's going to be drawn, and this is
It's
from
still kind of a
discussions I've
gray
had at
area.
N4C in our monthly meetings, is as long as the pixels come from the image,
But
they're
how do you know?
probably going
How
to
do
be
you know
okay.
that though? I mean, that's the problem with the
Yeah,
AI. You
that's-
don't
Honor
really
system.
know.
Yeah,
Yep.
you don't.
It's going to sample and analyze everything to give you the best match.
Yeah,
That's the deal. So when you took the sidewalk out on the at the harbor there in the Santa Cruz Harbor there,
Yeah.
I mean that does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But and do those rocks, did they actually come from that image, or did they come from that image and other images? This is always the deal.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
We could go back and look at it and start counting rocks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in this case, it did use the rocks that were already there,
Yeah.
but
it would be good though to it's and everybody's got their own opinion on this, and it's really funny because you start
Yeah.
listening to people, and it's just like like figure a 10 or 15 years from now that people won't even talk about this
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
But those rocks in the image were probably not a simple clone, taking the image in one part and putting it in the other.
Yeah,
It may have used the existing rocks in the image as a base, but still adjusted it so that it kind of keeps a natural look to it.
Well,
Yeah.
it tried to match lighting that would be over there, and
yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the really interesting parts about AI is that they do the lighting with some of that. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
good night, David.
Good night.
Okay, I'm burned out. That's it. I'll see you guys. I wanted to jump in because you're doing AI tonight. And I said I gotta hear what you guys are up to with this, because I know it's ever evolving kind of a deal here.
Yeah.
And but again, I think if people respect truly the categories that require no manipulation, I think that's a huge win right there. And and maybe someday we can make some allowances for the other categories too.
Yeah, I think that's a couple of years away, but yeah, I think that's a possibility. And Charlie, I sent you that image and I put some notes in the email that said what we did to it.
Okay, all right. I'll see what I can find out. I don't know. I'll do a little sleuthing here and see what I can come up with.
I'd love to find out because Adobe's been saying this for about 4 or 5 months that I've noticed, and I can't find out where it puts that.
Yeah, again, this is something that may not be readily available to the common man here. So that's I don't know how deep it goes in here, but I am aware that it does exist. So that's
Good.
we'll have to figure it out.
I do know that for police cameras, which they typically use specialized high-end like Canon and Nikons,
Yeah,
is they put a signature in the image, like a checksum. And
Right.
so if
Yeah.
any pixels get changed, it won't match on checksum.
right.
So I know police and FBI guys that do a lot of photo, they have specialized cameras, puts this checksum on the image. And
Yeah.
so if it doesn't match, then they can't use it as evidence.
You mean all of Trump's videos are not true? Some of them.
No.
No, it's
No.
none of those images have been manipulated, even with a magic marker. They
Yeah.
But he's such a nice guy.
Okay, guys, see you. Good talk.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.